Hello, and welcome to the Average Code community. In this C# tutorial, we are going to learn variables and comments. To start the tutorial, let's open Visual Studio and go to our project that we created in previous lesson. If you delete it or if you don't have, then watch previous or create just a new project. So let's delete this line right over here. So all of this code that you see right now on the screen, you have to consider as must-have. You will know what all of this line are doing in this program, but a bit later. For now, just understand that you have to put this code in all your programs, and if you will be writing your own code, then put your code right between this and this bracket. So your code have to be right here. So after explaining this, let's talk about easier part of this tutorial, and it is comments. So what is comment? Comment is basically just a text inside the code that doesn't do anything. It just tells a programmer what this part of code is doing and so on. So there are two types of comments. First is only one line, and second is more than one line. So after putting these two characters, you will have a line comment. So in this line you can write out everything that you want. But if you go to the next line and you put something right over here, then compiler will think that is some kind of variable or something like it, and if we run this code, it's going to end up with mistakes in this place. So if you don't want to have these mistakes, you should put again these two marks, these two characters. To write more than one line comment, you will put this character and this. And you can write down in this line, you can go to the next line, to the next line, and to the next line. But after doing all of it, you have to put again these two characters. You don't have to have the stars in your code. So this is comments. Alright, let's talk about variables right now. So to explain what variables are, I'm going to go to GIMP, its text editor, and let's imagine memory of your computer as big, long space, and yeah, it's memory of your computer, and variable is just a little part of all this memory. So let's make it somewhere over here. So it is a variable. Inside of the variable, you may put an data. It has a space, and you may put n type of data inside of this variable. So, for example, let's put inside this variable value 5. So this variable equals 5, and you can refer to the value inside of the variable by name. So let's call this variable x, and let's create another variable and call it y. So try to solve this simple thing. Y equals x plus x. So what will be the value inside of the y? If x equals 5, then x plus x is the same as 5 plus 5. So y should be equal 10. And it will be. So y will equal 10. But that's not about variables. All variables have its data type. There are lots of different data types, but you should know only a few of them. At least for now. After some time, you will have to learn more of them, but for now you have to know only a few of them. Alright, now let's talk about how we can create an variable. To create a variable, you have to write its data type, call it, and after this, you have to give it a value, or in the end of it, you may put just a semicolon. So you have to know that almost after all of the lines, you have to put a semicolon. So yeah, let's create a variable. So int, its data type, it's integer. So inside this data type you may store only integers, and you can't store other data inside of this variable. And let's call it x. In real programs you want to give it like legit names, because if you call it x or h and it's a pretty big program, you may end up with confusing yourself what to do with that variable. So for example, if we are trying to count and weigh, you may call this variable speed or time and so on. So x, and put in semicolon after it. So congrats, now we created integer variable and we can use it. We can store inside this integer 10 int, and let's call it y and z. If you have same data types and more than one variable, then you can define them by using commas. So we created one variable and another variable, which is z. And you don't have to define its value in another line. You may just define it right over here. So let's put inside y value 5. And you may do basic math operations with variables. So z equals y plus x, and don't forget about semicolon. They are really important thing, because if you forget about them, then you're gonna end up with mistake, and you're gonna end up with it definitely. So, and after storing this thing inside z, let's print it in console. So console dot write line, and let's print z. So this lines prints everything that is between these brackets. So let's run this code. And as you may see, y equals 5 and x equals 10. So 5 plus 10 equals 15, and obviously we have this value right over here. And after all of it, let's change value of z to 3 and value of y to 7. So x equals y multiplied by z. So if we print x now, we're going to end up with 21, because 3 multiplied by 7 equals 21. I hope it makes sense. So, as I told you, there are lots of different data types. In this lesson, we are going to talk about 6 data types. So, the first one is integer, and second is float, which is number with floating dot. So let's call it again x, and it will be equal 10 and 10.5, for example. Put after this number f, and now as you may see we have 10.5. Yeah, so now let's do more math and create another variable and call it again y, and let's put inside this 10f, and yeah, it's like don't be scared if you have like yellow thing. It's just warns you that we have a variable and we ain't using it somewhere in code, so it's saying that you can delete this variable because you don't need it. But let's do x plus y, and what do you think it's gonna end up with? What do you think we're gonna end up with? Yep, 20.5. But what if we try to add like something like z, integer z, and let's call it, and let's start value of 5 inside of this, and let's add 5 right over here. So if we try to print it, z, I'm sorry, it's gonna be printed inside, but let's create force variable, and let's store inside it z plus x and plus y, and let's print it. And we're going to end up with mistake. So why do we have this mistake? We have this mistake because you can't add do math operations with different variables of different data type. So as you may see, x and y is variables of float type, when z and c are integers. So if you want store x plus y inside this variable, you have to convert it to integer. And to do it, you just write int and put this between brackets. And now if we run it, sorry, not int. You have to write convert to int 32. I confuse it with another programming language. So now if we run it, we're gonna have 25. But where's this dot 5? We lost it because when you convert float to integer, it's going to drop all numbers after dot. So let's comment it. So this code not going to run anymore. And let's talk about another data type. So another data type is double. So double is same data type as float. The only difference between those data types is that double can store bigger numbers, but we ain't going to use it. You ain't going to use such bigger numbers in your programs for now, maybe somewhere in future. So float should be enough. So let's create double, let's call it x, let's store inside of it. Let's store inside of it value of 20, and let's print x. We're gonna have here warning that we have two variables that aren't used in code. So yeah, let's do it. And as you may see, we have 20. You can add 15 and run it again. Now we have 20.15. Yeah, so I explained 3 of the variables. Now let's move to other types. So first data type will be char. It's character, and inside this we can store letter, or we can store something else like, I don't know, dot or comma or multiply symbol. So let's print, let's create char data type. So char, let's call it x equal, and you may put value between these characters, or you may store it between this. It doesn't matter. So s, for example. And as you may see, we have s printed in our console. But if you try to write down something like this, it's still gonna print only the first letter. It will drop everything, because character, it's only one character. If you want print some kind of text, you have to store it inside of the string. So yeah, as you may see, it printed hello world because it's stored inside of the SR variable. And yes, you can add strings and char to each other. So if we add it, as you may see, we have s variable, we plus space and plus the string, and we end up with s space and everything that was inside of the string. And now let's talk about the last data type in this lesson, and it's bool or boolean. It's true or false, 0 or 1, something or nothing, and you can give it much more ways to be understood. So boolean, and let's call it bool without one O, and equal true. And now we have another data type. So yeah, let's print it. True. Or you may print it it can be added. As you may see, you can't add booleans. So let's print this data type, and we have false. You can't store anything inside. Okay, you learn what is wearables, where you can use it, and how to create one, and what you can do with it. But there is one thing that I have to mention, and it's how you can call wearables. To call an wearable, you have to remember that in name of the wearable you can't use any characters except for letters. So if you try to call it like this, it's going to think that it's string data, right? Or if you try to call it like this, it's still gonna think that you're trying to pull out to write a string value, or if you try to do something like it, if you run it, it's gonna be mistakes. It's gonna be a mistake. And if we try to run even with this character, it's still gonna be a mistake, because you can't call this variable in that way. So now let's and another thing, you can't put number in front of the variable. You have to put it at least after one character, like this, or somewhere here, or probably even right over here. And you can use this character too inside of the variable to create it. So let's run it. Sorry. Let's run it, and we have 10. Right, I think that's everything for this lesson, and I hope you like it. If you like it, then don't forget to subscribe or hit the notification bell. Comment down below if you have any questions. I will answer on some of them, or maybe even on all of them. So see ya. Bye.